Joining us at the table is John McCarthy, a former senior advisor for political engagement to President Biden. And I should also note for folks, part of John's portfolio included literally the Vatican and all of the all of the religious groups. But like when we needed to get something, very true. When we needed to get when there was Vatican chit chat, you go to John McCarthy because he can literally call the people.
Well, let's do some Vatican chit chat because this ish is beyond crazy right now. So for a couple of things I want to put on the table as we get into the conversation. I think it's very important for people to understand very clearly. I cannot be more serious about this. This is not an escalation by the Pope. Mm-hmm. The Pope doesn't care about the politics of this. In fact, he even said, I'm not afraid of this administration, right? They're not going to bully me into moving off of the gospel of Christ and the teachings of Christ. That's number one. Number two, when you look at the picture, can we put the picture back up real quick on the screen just for a moment? This is a question for just every common sense individual out there, and you too, John. Just one for a moment. Can we get the picture? Yeah, here we go. I don't know what kind of doctors you know, but how many do you know make house calls dressed like Jesus?
Just the Lord, my Savior.
And I've seen this image in church, and I never said there's a doctor.
Exactly. Have angelic light behind and coming out of their hands with whatever the hell those other beings behind them are. Now, those could be physician assistants. I don't know. You tell me, right? And then, of course, having people around them kneeling in prayer as he places his hands on someone's forehead. Now, that's an odd way, in my view, to take a temperature, but there it is. Donald Trump thought he was displaying himself as a doctor. Y'all really don't even want me to say what I'm thinking right now.
Jesus was a doctor.
What was that?
Jesus is a healer for those that believe.
And Donald Trump is not that person.
Well,
so let's be clear.
Yeah.
John?
And to me, we're sitting and we're kind of like laughing about this and talking about how outrageous it is, right? In the same way that we did a couple months ago when he posted pictures of himself dressed like the Pope, right? But the interview on CBS that actually sparked so much of this, right, was with those three American cardinals. And I thought Cardinal Cupich's point was actually the most important. And Cardinal Cupich out of Chicago sat and said that the most disturbing thing we've seen out of the White House is actually the gamification of war, right? We've seen these outrageous videos come out of the White House with hype music and this kind of like military game-styled, imagery talking about this conflict. And I think what the Pope has done is actually reminded everyone, and the cardinals have as well, that really at the end of the day, human life is at the center of all of this, right? And that's the important role of the church. The Pope is not a politician, he's not a pundit, he's a pastor. And I think that's what his voice is doing. And that kind of moral voice that's inching back into our public dialogue, reminding people that what they're seeing is not right, is what's disturbing the president on this.
It's the moral code.
The moral code. You referenced that interview with 60 Minutes that a few of the bishops did. I want you to take a listen to another part of that interview that we were all equally struck by. Here it is.
Pope Leo will spend July 4th in Lampedusa, Italy, a site where tens of thousands of migrants land on their way to Europe every year. It's America's 250th birthday. Do you think the Holy Father is sending a message, Cardinal, with that visit?
He's sending a message that his top priority right now is to be with those who are downcast and marginalized.
Coincidence that he's going there on July 4th?
I know at least one member of my archdiocese that will be happy, and she's green. And she's on a little island that belongs to New Jersey and is technically part of the Archdiocese of Newark. And she's holding up a torch and she's reading from a scroll and it says, "Welcome."
I'm touched by that as a granddaughter of immigrants. I am touched by that as a New Jerseyan. Thank you for recognizing where the Statue of Liberty actually stands. But the idea that, yes, this is about what is happening in Iran and the choice that the president is making there. It is also about his mass deportation effort. To your point about a voice of morality seeping in, I want to take a look at some of the numbers of where Catholic voters have been in these past few elections. In 2016, they were plus 8 points for Donald Trump. In 2020, they were plus 1 for Biden. Then in 2024, they go back to being plus 12 for Trump. Are they listening to the bishops? Are they listening to the Pope?
Well, Catholics have always been kind of bellwether voters, right? And I mean, the president has kind of turned this into a political conversation by calling the Pope into this kind of American political context. And the thing that I'm actually most struck by is, right, as we're looking towards the midterms, like where are the Republicans in Congress right now pushing back on this? Because if you actually look across the country, there's, you know, tens of millions of American Catholics. It's the largest Christian denomination in the country. And the concentrations of these Catholics tend to be in places like California, New York, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Iowa. Now, if you're a Republican in Congress, you're also looking at those states and saying that's where our most competitive seats are. You know, 8 in 10 American Catholics support and find a positive way of looking at Pope Leo. I mean, Donald Trump's numbers on his best day could never get there. So it makes no sense that the president attack this very popular figure who's adding a lot to American public life. We're so proud that he's an American. If I were the president or if I were a Republican Congress, I'd be trying to find ways to resonate with that message. It's clearly breaking through with people.
Trump's ego won't let them do that, Simone.
It won't let him do it. You know, I want to go back to this thing about the picture because Michael Steele was absolutely correct. Like, that's not a, it's crazy. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. But I'm saying but because it is actually quintessential Donald Trump and also something that has been a feature of Trumpism from that day he came down the escalator. There are these hardcore, last hour Tom Nichols referred to people who support the president as a cult. And I do think there are some people that do exhibit cult-like behavior. And if we have put it on television before. At some of these Trump rallies, you would, when you go out and you interview people who are there, you would see folks who have T-shirts that are depicting Trump as God, T-shirts that are depicting him as a savior. There were interviews on our network after the president survived the first assassination attempt in the last election, saying that, oh, the Lord saved him. People who support him. And so this element of what I would refer to as Christian nationalism, extremely conservative, evangelical Christians, this has been a feature of Trumpism for a very long time, but it has been, I think, on the fringe. And now it's in the mainstream for everyone to see because it's coming directly from the president himself, but also folks like the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon, and Russell Vought as the OMB director.
Yeah, and you know, for Catholics, right, unlike some faith traditions, our faith calls us to participate in politics, right? You know, the Bishops' Conference itself talks about how you form a faithful conscience to participate actively.
The AME and the Baptists would agree with you.
Yeah, and I think that as you're looking at this, a lot of people are looking about, you know, how do they participate and actually live out the gospel? If people are sitting and saying that they think that the Pope is being radical on this, wait till they crack open the gospel. I mean, this is a faith tradition that says, blessed are the poor, blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are the persecuted, right? And that's something that I think the Pope has done singularly well on in this, because in all of this volatility in public life right now, the Holy Father has been able to, through his actions, both in loud ways and small ways. You know, the Pope, when he made his comments this morning saying that he doesn't lose sleep over Donald Trump, which, God bless him, I hope we can all take up his lesson on that one. But as he boarded the plane, he was actually going to Africa and focusing on this apostolic visit where he's going to be talking about those who are left out by governments, left on the margins of society. He's living that out every single day. So I just think in his quiet way of being a pastor, he's painting such a contrast with Donald Trump.
Which is interesting when you talk about contrast with Donald Trump when it comes to the Catholic vice president. And the fact that the Catholic vice president is behaving in such a way that as a Catholic and a former seminarian, I'm checking you, sir. Let me let you hear his words in defense of Donald Trump in regard to criticizing the Pope.
We can respect the Pope. We certainly have a good relationship with the Vatican, but we're also going to disagree on substantive questions from time to time. I think that's a totally reasonable thing. I certainly think that in some cases, it would be best for the Vatican to stick to matters of morality, to stick to matters of you know, what's going on in the Catholic Church, and let the President of the United States stick to dictating American public policy.
Clearly, this man has no clue about what you just said.
These are issues of morality.
Because these are issues of morality, and that's just it. At the core of this is a lack of a moral core, as expressed by this president who dared to not only on Easter Sunday level up a expletive-laden tweet on Easter Sunday, and then follow that up with the depiction of himself as Jesus Christ. And then this vice president who professes all this, oh, I'm so Catholic, sits there, well, you know, he just needs to stick to morality. Well, guess what? He did.
Yep.
Did you not see and hear that? I mean, am I missing something here?
No.
Because clearly the vice president is.
Yeah. And I mean, yesterday, when this transpired, we were, of course, for Catholics in the second Sunday of Easter, right? Where the gospel reading yesterday came back to that phrase that were Pope Leo's first words when he walked out on that balcony. And he said, "Peace be with you," right? So, I mean, if this is not kind of a symbolic arch, I don't know what is. And I think that that's the message that the Pope is bringing forth to people, peace be with you. And I think that that's the issue that the president is taking with him at this moment.
You know, can I just tell you, it is crazy because when I saw this picture this morning, and again, the president has depicted himself as a king before, as the Pope, right? I just go back to when I was in high school. I went to Catholic school, a Catholic all-girls high school. Sisters of Mercy, shout out to the Mercy
Sisters
Girls.
of Mercy
Yes,
too. There
we
we
love
go.
the sisters, okay?
Love the Sisters of Mercy.
Once we had a project, and we had to depict the Dalai Lama and like draw his essence. And the people in my group, we depicted the Dalai Lama as an ice cream cone because we were like, he's sweet and da-da-da. We presented. We was in the principal's office for, let me tell you, a very long time and had a whole project to do afterwards because it was disrespectful in the way in which to depict the Dalai Lama as an ice cream cone. And so if that was the case for the Dalai Lama way back when, why would the president and the people that work in the White House think that they could just run roughshod over the Pope and God and Jesus and Allah and everybody? I don't.
In 2 weeks' time?
In 2 weeks' time.
And for
he
those
got
of us
smoke
who
for
worked
everyone.
in White Houses, I would love to see that approvals chain.
Oh,
Who signed
child.
off on that?
Approvals chain, how cute. J.D. Vance is not only trying to embrace his Catholicism. He has a memoir coming out this spring about his path to Catholicism. And already, there has been a public grappling between the way he sees Catholicism and the way that popes, even predating Pope Leo, understand Catholicism, because I forget the Latin phrase, you'll forgive me, but this idea of like love through order, of prioritizing your family over your neighbor, that is how he has contextualized his own Catholicism. And there has been this retort from Pope Leo and others that says, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
Like the essence of and I bring this all up because I think he is teeing himself up for a presidential run. I think he plans to make his Catholicism and his religiosity central to that. And so it seems
Looped in with Christian nationalism, because this isn't Catholicism.
Yeah. What I also think is interesting about that, in the statement that the president put out on Truth Social, where he talked about how there would be no Pope Leo without Donald Trump, does kind of come at this. You know, Catholics believe that the Pope is chosen by the Holy Spirit, right? Like that they inform the cardinal electors and that the Spirit actually moves them to decide who should lead the church, right? So, I mean, the arrogance out of this to sit and say that, you know, just Donald Trump was the reason for this. But I actually think that the Pope obviously comes at a unique moment in American life, too. Because, you know, progressives in many ways rallied around Pope Francis. Conservatives rallied around Pope Benedict. And interestingly, Pope Leo, for this moment, is kind of the feeling and style of Pope Benedict and in the pastoral approach of Pope Francis. So this should actually be a uniting kind of figure in our church. And it should be something that Republicans should also be able to look at and say, I align myself with that too. The fact that they're not able to do that tells that they just might not actually be into Catholicism at the end of the day.